I'm from Kenya at the University of Eldoret. That's where I am based. But at the moment, I'm in Senegal for some research. I'm a very proud member of Planetary Health, and in Eastern Africa, I belong to the team where I'm in charge of community communication. And at the moment, I'm also the campus ambassador for our university for, I think, the third time. And I'm so happy to connect to all of us and also to listen to this amazing pleasure.
Thank you very much, Leonard. Just sit tight, get your bottle of water. It's going to be a very long and interesting evening. It's a pleasure to have you also. So next I see, now I hope I do get this name correct. It's spelled Elias. I don't know if it's also pronounced Elias, but I see Elias Ukakuwan or something of sort. My apologies in advance if I did some injustice to your name there. But all right, yeah. Good evening to you.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm all right, and you?
Yes, I'm fine. Thanks for the introduction. My name is Elias Uchakuwun. I'm one of the...
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Pronounced. No, that's okay. There's no problem. I am a member of staff at the School of... Now it is called the School of Environmental Sciences and Natural Resource Management at the University of Eldoret. And I am in the department called Environmental Science, which is also the same department Melvin and Agan are in. We are now in the same department. So I'm happy to be following this, but by profession, I'm a geologist, so my area in the teaching division is environmental earth sciences, which has a lot to do with the health of the planet as well. So I look at it from a different angle, not the medical aspect of it. So I'll be glad to hear what is going to be said in this meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Whether you're looking at it from the geological perspective, you're looking at it from the health perspective, from the educational perspective, from the law and natural and social science perspective, every perspective that revolves around the well-being of the planet and the well-being of the different components of our planet is very much welcome in this meeting. So you're very much welcome here. Thank you once again. And then next I have Lydia. Hello, Lydia. Would you please unmute? I think you're still muted.
Oh, sorry about that.
All right,
my name is Lydia Kabuke from Nairobi, Kenya. My background, I'm a medical doctor by training, and I also have a master's in public health, focus on global health. I have practiced medicine for like 15 years. Then I branched out to do public health. I've been working mainly in HIV, sexual and reproductive health rights, and more recently on COVID and global health security. And I'm really excited about planetary health. And I reached out to Agan, and I'm really excited that he hooked me up to this forum, and I really want to participate and learn from you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We hope to learn from you just as much. It's a pleasure to have you here. All right, time is fast flying by. I wish I could put a pause on it. So quickly, on Koba, yeah, that's the next person.
Hi, how are you? My name is
right.
Koba. Yeah, and I've been here for a while. And I'm a biomedical scientist with interest in tropical infectious diseases, malaria, TB, HIV, and helminths. And I've been here for so long, huh? So at least everyone knows me here. Okay, hope to be of help. Bye.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, next person is Mr. Joe Payne.
Thank you, Samuel.
Yeah.
Thanks to everyone. I'm glad to be here. And this is my first time. So I'm Joe NP from Liberia. I'm a registered nurse and a student majoring in maternal and child health, doing my master's. And I'm glad to be here, and I'm also happy to be in this space because this space have grew my knowledge when it comes to climate change and planetary health. So I'm happy and hope to see everyone, and we'll have a fruitful discussion. Thank you so much, Samuel.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to have you as always. Okay, I think I'm just 2 persons away from getting back to Nathan. First is Percy. Hello, Percy.
Hello, Sam.
Good evening to you.
Good evening from Ghana.
Yeah.
And I just want to stand in the protocols that have already been set and say that I'm happy to be here also. And I am also a nutritionist and a dietitian here in Ghana. And I've been with Akofi and the MRN at least since last year. And I'm happy to say that I'm glad to be part of today's encounter. I have an interest in climate change and environmental sustainability, particularly when it comes to food environments and food systems. And I'm happy that today's discussion is around these spheres. I'm hoping to learn some more new things and to contribute to the conversations going forward. Over.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. There's someone who is in the house. I do not know the name, but I see iPhone on my screen. I don't know if it's a male iPhone or a female iPhone.
Hi, Samuel. It's me. I forgot to. I was supposed to change my. So sorry. I didn't even know that's what was collecting. Thank you for making me
Hello, Chanel.
aware. I'm gonna.
Hello, Chanel. How are you?
Hi, Samuel. Hi, I'm good. Thanks. How are you?
I'm all right. Nice
I hope everyone is doing. Thank you. I hope everyone is doing well. Thank you for organizing this. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Okay, all right. I think we've had an opportunity to hear about everyone in the house at the moment. It's a beautiful, beautiful gathering of very brilliant, intelligent, interesting, beautiful, and handsome faces. This is the Mentoring Research Network, and I would like Dr. Mona to say a few words about the MRN. And just right after her, Nathan will then go on to give us something of an overview about the ACOFI and how MRN actually fits into the ACOFI. And so, Dr. Mona, are you in a position?
Thank you so much, Samuel. My name is Mona Sherbini. I'm an associate professor at Qasr Al Aini, Cairo University. I'm specialized in parasitic infectious diseases, and I joined Nathan Nightingale early in 2021 in this initiative of Africa Community for Planetary Partners for Health and the Environment. And it's really interesting, the structural framework of this organization that is organically based within Africa, and it seeks to promote cross-disciplinary knowledge exchange and also to work towards the sustainability and the health of Africa and for all. So together with Samuel Avimbola, we were able to launch the Mentoring Research Network with some objectives that we usually share with our members to remind ourselves and others that we are here for a purpose. And together with Vanessa, our MRN Secretariat, and Tajuddin Yusuf, the research manager, we were able to form like an administrative team capable of working together to try to implement those objectives. So without further delay, I will handle it to Nathan Nathan, you can say more about Akofi and why we are here and why we are, what we aspire to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mona. Thank you, Samuel. And thank you to all. In Kiswahili, we say asanteni sana. Pia tunasema karibuni sana. So for those of you who don't speak Swahili, that just means thank you to all and welcome to all. I'll aim to just take 2 minutes to look backwards a bit and also look forwards a bit. And I'll begin by referencing Vanessa and do a little bit of art. And I just thought about the song from The Lion King that talks about love, and I'll just insert planetary health. We'll see how this goes. Can you feel planetary health tonight? So that is how I am feeling. I'm feeling the love, and more than any words, that is where Akofi began, is from the feeling, the belief that we are all one as people, and we can be one again with our fellow life forms in the circle of life to reconnect with our beautiful planet, our one home. So a walk down memory lane, it was almost exactly 2 years ago that we had a bit of a major launch to the general public with the 2021 Planetary Health Annual Meeting that was co-hosted, co-facilitated by our esteemed Samuel Abimbola, Melvin Otieno, and Nightingale. And if I recall right, we had approximately 9 presenters, including Mona and Chanel and several others. And that was an exciting way for us to come together and to share our spirits, our energy, and our healing love with the rest of the world. We have followed a beautiful winding pathway since then to bring us to the present moment. And looking forward, we are now 8 days from Earth Day on April 22nd. And in a few days, Nightingale and I will both return to Kenya. I will reunite with Fahili and Rehema. It's been several months that I've been away from them. So really looking forward to that connection. And we are looking to officially register Akofi within Kenya, and also thinking of something special that we can do on Earth Day to do some kind of community ceremony where Akofi is looking to be born outside on the lands, most likely on the border of the Rift Valley in Kenya. So more to come about that, and looking forward to today's discussion. Again, I'll say karibuni sana, and something like the either official or unofficial motto for Akofi, tunasema pamoja twaweza, and that means together we are able. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Nathan, for that. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I see Francois have just joined us, but time will not permit me. Perhaps during our break, I'll give opportunity to those who are just joining now to say a brief intro about themselves.
And also Melvin. Okay,
Melvin,
also
yeah,
Melvin.
No, I didn't miss Melvin. She's the one who's speaking.
Is another one. I also made the same mistake. Is another Melvin in the house. So together with Francoise, they will speak in the break time. All right?
You mean there is this other Melvin is it's a different Melvin in Kenya
also.
Yes, hello everyone.
Hello, Melvin.
Yes, I'm also called Melvin, a very close friend to Melvin.
And from Kenya also.
Sorry for the confusion. Yes, I'm Kenyan too.
Oh my, it just confused me. When I saw EN Melvin Kenya, I assumed that was the English handle of the same Melvin, maybe for when she's attending her UN meetings and all. So I felt it was just Melvin being there again. Sorry, I missed it. Okay, during the break, I would give you some minutes to reintroduce yourself properly. Is that all right?
It's okay, no problem. Thank
Thank you
you.
very much. Thank you. And thank you, Vanessa, for pointing that out. I actually didn't know. Okay, so greetings to everyone once again. I think it's good morning or good afternoon to those of you in the United States who are in the eastern part of the hemisphere. To those of us in the south, it's about good evening or good night, as some people would think, the wee hours of the evening. It's a wonderful time to have all of us here for this very interesting dialogue. We're having a very interesting conversation this evening, which is actually going to border upon conversations about food security, food shortage and food scarcity, and how this has been or is being affected by climate change, intergovernmental policies, politics, and politicking. And we're trying to have that open space where we can all converse, rub minds together, share ideas, brainstorm, and see what's the next step for Africa. Africa happens to be that continent that has the highest burden of hunger and of poverty at the same time. And when you juxtaposition these with the teeming double burden of infectious and communicable chronic diseases, you see that we're in a very tight position, we're very, very delicate position, and we're trying to see how we, being the active players in the industry, in our different industries, can begin to think of ways forward in order to mitigate initially the problem we are facing, and then try to find ways out of this abyss into which we are staring. And so with us this evening is Melvin Otieno. Melvin has a very long profile that I might not be able to exhaust if I'm to do justice. So I will try to just give a synopsis on the person of Melvin. So Melvin Otieno is an environmental health scientist and the founder of the Planetary Health Eastern Africa Hub. And somewhere in that chemistry, she's also a friend of mine. She aims at stimulating regional community building to provide education for transformative action and to influence policy for planetary health issues. And as a climate change activist in Kenya, she has also worked closely with certain organizations like the KLUJ, the CLOG, the German Alliance on Climate Change and Health in the Climate Change and Health / Planetary Health Leadership Sector online course. It's a transformational program. She had a BSc in environmental biology and an MSc from environmental health at the University of Eldoret as far back as 2020. And since 2020, she's been serving as the next generation fellow of the Planetary Health Alliance, where she's working to inspire, to activate, and to convene the next generation of planetary health campus ambassadors from around the world, and more particularly within Africa. She's an associate team member of the Women Leaders for Planetary Health, where she advocates for gender equality and gender equity, for sound environment and public health solutions. And also as an active member of the In Vivo Planetary Health, she also goes into other activities that borders around climate change activism, women empowerment, the empowerment of the girl child, and to create an atmosphere and an environment that is very much suitable for balanced growth and development of individuals and of the continent of Africa, and then the globe at large. And like I said, if I'm to do justice to the whole of her profile, there's a long, long list of things that time will fail me to say, or which memory might not even allow me to remember vividly. But at the moment, she's an assistant lecturer at the University of Eldoret, where she coordinates the SOPHIA project, which is the Strengthening One Health and Planetary Health in Eastern Africa. This project is funded by the DAAD, or DAD as it's known, a German-based funding organization. And what else can I say about Melvin at the moment? I think I would just wrap up by saying she collaborates with local, regional, and international partners, and aspires to continuously participate in global dialogues within global communities that border around peace building, climate change, building planetary health, or improving the planetary health, and the One Health concept to find solutions to environmental health challenges and the imbalances that are currently facing us as a species and as a world. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Melvin Otieno. She'll be speaking to us this evening. So Melvin, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Samuel, and thanks everyone for joining our conversation today. Just before we start off this presentation from my end, I would also like Samuel just to share a brief video about global, about insecurities in Kenya, so that everyone could learn on what is happening concerning this issue. Could you please share from your end, if possible?
Gadgets, μικροσυσκευές, οικιακές συσκευές, ηλεκτρικά πατίνια, όργανα.
Let's move on now. Conflict and climate change, compounded with rising fuel and food prices, have now pushed about a quarter of Africans towards hunger. The International Committee of the Red Cross has warned that an estimated 346 million people are affected by food insecurity in the continent. The statement from the ICRC means that about 346 million people in the continent have likely experienced hunger. The crisis could be the worst since 2017. Last year, the figure was about 286 million.
An estimated 346 million people are affected by food insecurity. That is 1/4 of the population of the continent.
The acute food insecurity situation in many of these countries is already affected by armed conflict. 2 years of conflict in northern Ethiopia's Tigray region in particular has left millions facing famine-like conditions. Insurgencies in Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger and Nigeria have also deepened the food insecurity in West Africa.
The current food security crisis is clearly the result of combined effects of conflict. Think about the Sahel in particular. Think about Ethiopia, that's been affected by serious conflict in the past couple of years. But it is also the effect of repeated climate shocks. The Horn of Africa is experiencing its worst drought in years after 3 failed rainy seasons.
Many of the countries dealing with conflict are also among the most severely affected by climate change. This is including South Sudan and Somalia. West Africa now faces its worst food crisis on record. There are about 27 million people suffering from hunger in the region. The number could rise to 38 million by June. It will be a 40% increase from last year and a historic high. The region has also seen worsening floods and droughts due to the effects of climate change. This has made farming harder. Meanwhile, global food and fuel prices are skyrocketing, in part because of the war in Ukraine. Prices for wheat have retreated from an all-time high that was hit last month, but still remain 70% higher than that observed in April 2021. Both Russia and Ukraine are leading producers of wheat. Corn and oil prices have naturally also surged. 6 West African countries import 30 to 40% of their wheat from Russia and Ukraine. Funding for the region is also at risk, as many donors have already indicated cutting funding for Africa to pay for refugees in Europe. Beyond World is One is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news updates on the move.
Thank you so much, Samuel. I'll now share my presentation. I guess you've learned about how this climate change is a real disaster in Africa, and there is need to amplify and work closely with the planetary health, One Health communities in this space. So let me share my screen in a short while. See. So I hope you are able to see. So I'll present about empowering Africa's food future, how researchers can tackle climate change challenges based on my experiences. So I'll share what really it means with the African continent being in need to prioritize planetary health. So basically what indigenous communities have known for thousands of years have slowly been adopted by integrated and into an academic understanding of the interdependence of unity of human and planetary well-being and the health leading to the term planetary health. So you find out that this planetary health concept, broadly speaking, it's about the health of humans and also the natural systems of which it depends on. So you find out that planetary health builds on other similar concepts, including the eco-health, One Health, and also conservation medicine. And we find out that there is really need to integrate all these concepts together so that we can tackle these current issues that is ongoing, that is really affecting Africa. So the real issue here is that we need to basically incorporate planetary health in our daily lives, also incorporate it in our institutions and so on. So we find out that because Africa is disproportionately the most vulnerable region in the world being affected by climate change. So we find out that we really need to prioritize planetary health in this space. So we find out that Africa has really played a significant role in the creation of the anthropogenic activities, whereby you find out that humans have been impacting on and exploiting our natural system. And this is also has resulted to increase in climate change issues. So we find out that this is also due to the lack of resources for adequate mitigation and adaptation. And you find out that Africa having more of poor, vulnerable people, they're really the ones who are really affected, especially women and children. So you find out that despite this reality, Africa also has really contributed to the global initiatives and also commitment to planetary health and climate change actions. So you find out that why is climate change a planetary health concern? You find out that, for instance, at the moment, you find out that there has been experiences of drought situations in a number of countries in the region. For instance, in Kenya at the moment, we've been faced with drought situation whereby it has put around 2.1 million Kenyans at a risk of starvation. And you find out that if there is high rate of starvation, it means that our crops, we cannot even have, the farmers cannot even plant crops because there's no sufficient water and so on. At the same time, also, animals are also dying at an alarming rate, like you can see from the picture. This is the northern part of Kenya, where drought has really been a serious issue. On the other hand, you find out that we also have flooding situation in some parts of the country, and you find out that we have the Lake Victoria Basin, which is well known to be the second largest lake in the world, supporting around 40 million ecosystem inhabitants, including Kenya, countries like Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, and Burundi, and people depend on fish from this lake. At the same time, we find out that as a result of flooding situation, a number of communities have been able to be displaced, and in the process, they have been able to commute to other places. So we find out that due to climate change issue, which is an intensifying food security across sub-Saharan Africa, where also due to the recent Russia war in the Ukraine, and we find out that also the recent COVID-19 pandemics have been adding to the food shortages and also high prices increase. So we find out now, at the moment, everyone is crying that the economy is high. People cannot even eat 3 meals a day here in our country. So we find out that there is really need to also figure out how the people living in rural areas, especially who are practicing agriculture and also fishing communities that can't afford, let's say, the infrastructure now that they have been destroyed due to flooding. So for instance, for instance, you find out that they depend on rainwater for their crops, and less than 1% of the arable land, this is especially for people who are affected by drought, are not even equipped with the technological items that they can help them with irrigation. So you find out that this is really a planetary health concern, and we really need to create more awareness about planetary health in our communities. That's why we have the regional hubs under the Planetary Health Alliance, and we have clinicians for planetary health, and we also have women leaders for planetary health these initiatives are really supporting the movement building and in the process so that we can promote planetary health in our regions as well as at local scale to up to global scale. So there is really need to focus on planetary health. That's why we as the Planetary Health Eastern African Hub, we saw that there is a knowledge gap in this space. So we realized that there was need for us to integrate planetary health education into institutional curriculum as well, so that we can tackle these issues together, so that whenever the students are aware about this planetary health or different disciplines also learn about planetary health, they can really change from on a personal level and also to a community level. So there is really need for us to really focus on this concept and also synergize with other concepts like the One Health, Eco Health, and so on. So basically, since there is a high rate of food insecurity in Africa, we see that the world's population has crossed from 7 billion, and the headlines at the moment in medias that are previously questions like, can we feed the world? Like, and some of them are even asking themselves, how many will there, as in how many people will be fed? Yet the number of insecurity is really increasing. So we find out that Sub-Saharan Africa is the world's most food insecure region. This is according also to the Global Food Index in 2021. And you find out that about 350 million people from this region, or rather 1 out of every 4 persons, do not have enough. They don't have enough food. So it's really difficult for them because of the food price increase, and also due to drought situation, it's forcing many people into poverty and famine. So you find out that as a result of this, you find out around 30 million children in Sub-Saharan Africa are underweight. And also you find out that 500 million people will also be added to the Sub-Saharan Africa's population in the next 20 years, meaning that 40% of the population will be which is under the age of 15, and their productive choices will be greatly influenced in the future. So there's really a problem in this space on the food insecurity. So there is really need for the voices or the needs and also the concerns among the African producers that are rarely heard by national decision makers. And but you figure out that food systems really depend on their produce. So basically, when we really encourage us to work on a local scale so that we amplify our voices on what is happening on the ground. So that's why whenever we represent, maybe through conferences, we have to talk about these issues and share how the indigenous communities are also affected, or rather the communities at large are also affected with these climate change issues resulting to food shortages. So there is really need to amplify their voices. And also, one thing, having participated in lots of international conferences, I realized that at international level, the voice of the smaller producer is virtually non-existent. So you don't see any farmer in those forums showcasing what has been happening. So I don't know how this can be looked into in a global perspective, because the local farmers are the ones who are doing the most. And at the same time, they're the ones who are suffering, but their voices are limitless during these global forums. So you find out that, for instance, if these farmers struggle to even feed themselves and their families, and also they end up producing food to meet the demands, is far off the market rate. So you find out as a result, the food shortages will increase. And also at the same time, in many communities, you find out that food insecurity also poses that the mean for food banks, for instance, you find out that there is redistribution services that's the only way for some individuals who have low income or are homeless to feed their families to survive. So it's really detrimental, and this is a topic that we really need to figure out how we could speak about it in the research forum, so that whenever we do research, we can also disseminate the information to the community and see how we could work closely with the government and so on. So broadening our horizon, we find out that planetary health moves from is incorporated from public health perspective to also global health. And also you find out that the concepts builds from public health, international health, and global health, and also goes beyond. And this is not by only considering the social, economic, and political determinants, but also it really amplifies the fact that we need also to figure out the political conditions and also cross-border determinants needing global cooperation. So we need to work closely with the global partners so that the natural systems of the planet can be protected. So you find out that the planetary health approach has a wider focus on the interdisciplinarity and with an emphasis on human health and related research areas. So it allows everyone to be on board. And that's why we really need to synergize this concept with other concepts. But there is several key planetary health challenges that the researchers could really take advantage of now becoming part of the solution. So you find out that there is an imagination challenge, and you need to rethink the relationship between humans and planets. So in other words, if there is a way that we could seek if there is a way we could seek the fact that we need to rethink the relationship between humans and the planets, meaning that we don't need to only be malicious and encroach our ecosystem, but we need also to figure out that this planet is not only for us, but we also have animals in it, but there is also this knowledge challenge. So we need to quantify the health impacts of global environmental change. By this, we need to focus more on integrating planetary health educations in our curriculum. And by this also, we need also to work closely with researchers by amplifying the third challenge, as in by tackling the third challenge, which is implementation challenge. Because by this, we will have to develop and evaluate solutions, strategies for sustainable lifestyle. So in other words, if we work closely, if the researchers could collect their data and their findings, and then in the process also disseminate to the communities, this will really be a good thing. And at the same time, if we work closely with the youth, especially now that in the planetary health space, there is programs for the youth called the Planetary Health Campus Ambassadors. If in a way the youth can be encouraged to do activities aligning themselves with working closely with the communities and also the policymakers, that will be ideal, and it will be beneficial for the youth also to just work closely with the community to implement planetary health challenges like climate change. So I also wanted to speak quickly about the planetary health diet. So by this, we see that the food we eat and the ways we produce it and also the amount of waste are lost have major impacts on human health in most cases. So you find out that in the global north, for example, in Europe, I realized that people really waste a lot of food. And you find out that in Africa, for instance, in the global south, for example, you find out in Africa, due to the ongoing drought situations, there is a lot of starvation. People cannot even have 3 meals a day. Some people even can't eat anything. Like people, for instance, here in Kenya, people from the northern part of Kenya, they're really starving, and it's really critical. That's why we really need to synergize a way that the global north, since we are also working locally, internationally, so there is need for the people from the global south, as in people from the global north, to see a way of how they could, instead of doing the food wastage, to see how this food can also be sufficient for others instead of throwing away. Yet there are some people from Africa, for instance, who are struggling due to these climatic issues that are also caused as a result of the the industrialization in the global north as well. So getting it right with food, it will be an important way for countries to achieve also the targets for the SDGs. And according to the Paris Agreement on Climate Change, we find out that agriculture uses like 40% of terrestrial land and also 70% fresh water. But at the moment, we realize that even during the pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of people lost their jobs, like especially for instance, here in Africa, lots of people lost their jobs. And in turn, they ended up clearing land further for agriculture. But at the same time, there was because of climate change, the rainfall pattern was interfered, and some farmers started complaining that they have planted their crops, but they can't see any yield and so on and so forth. But the issue is that if we follow this Paris Agreement, I think there is also need for it's also responsible for 30% of greenhouse gases emission. And also you find out that 820 million people will go hungry every day if we don't follow the Paris Agreement on climate change. So you find out that also in some parts, as in worldwide, you find out 2 billion adults are also overweight or obese. And we need also to really synergize a way of following the planetary health diet according to the Planetary Health Lancet Commission. So I also wanted to share with you about a project we did together with Dr. Jennifer Cole from Royal Holloway. She's also a member of the Northern Europe Hub. And this project we did during the pandemic. And the project was focusing on wet market and backyard livestock, and we wanted to focus or address a more general question around the role of backyard livestock and markets in nutritional provision during early childhood, and the impact of early childhood health, and in particular with the resource of poor context where we find out that the cold chain storage is constrained, and at the point of the cell in the home. So this study, we did it in Eldoret, Kenya. So we were collecting data focusing on child health, because we found out that during the pandemic, a lot of families, due to lack of jobs or due to job losses, they were not able to maybe give their children protein diet. So we were really focusing on what kind of protein diets are there in the market, and if families are feeding their children with this protein diet and so on. So our research was basically also addressing the SDG 2 concerning the zero hunger, and also SDG 3 about good health and well-being, and also SDG number 10, reduced inequalities, and also SDG number 11, sustainable cities and communities. And also we were also looking into SDG number 12, responsible consumption and production. So we were linking them together by showing the role of wet markets, which play in a food system that favors sustainable livestock rearing, and also empower low-income households, and in particular women within them, because we find out that women are the ones who usually sell a lot of food produce, and that they are the most vulnerable people in our society, including children that are affected by climate change. So all these go hand in hand. So we find out that as a result of this, we need to redesign the food system to eliminate the unnecessary food surplus, which would also prevent the food waste and so on, and also tackling also the root causes of poverty, which could also address the household level of food insecurity, because we are visiting household per household, asking questions on what kind of dietary they are giving their children, and what are the challenges that they're facing and so on. So what are some of the gaps? And in the process, I also discussed the solution about climate change and food security research. So in most cases, we find out that research scientists who are focusing on food security topics, there is lack of interactive research on crops, livestock, forest farming, pests, and diseases in most cases. So by this, we need, as people from academia and research institution as well, and also NGOs who are working in this in research on climate change and food security topics. They need to organize a way that they could do interactive research, which is really vital, and include researchers and stakeholders. And thanks for these MRN platforms, because it's really nurturing early career researchers in this space. And at the same time, it's enabling us to get contacts of people from different parts of Africa and beyond, and in the process, it synergizes. We see that which gaps do we have in research, and in that scenario, we see that there is also need for collaborations and so on. So we find out that we must take realistic approaches to tackle current and future challenging climate change through the possible also adaptation solutions. And we find out that another gap is the gap between research analysis and implementation. So basically now that we have different disciplines in universities, but specifically under public health, medicine, and so on, there is a gap in research analysis whereby you find out early career researchers sometimes lack basic techniques. They don't know how to maybe do, let's say, qualitative and quantitative data analysis. So I think this will be also a good platform. The MRN platform could also be, aside from students studying at their own university and so on, this platform could be ideal to also teach the early career researcher or train them on this analysis of data so that they are able to know how to quantify different data and in the process be part of dissemination of the research data as well. So what are some of the areas of actions that researchers or scientific community could focus on? This is, I got this from this publication, and we saw that there was the need for these researchers to integrate food security and sustainable agriculture into global and national policies, because there is a gap in that, and also significantly raise the level of global investment or regional investment in sustainable agriculture and food system in the next decade. And also we need to see a way of sustainably intensifying agricultural production while reducing greenhouse gases emissions, and other negative impacts of agriculture. So you find out that there is also need to develop specific programs and policies also to assist populations and sectors that are most vulnerable to climate change and food security, especially areas where there are also indigenous communities. Like here in Kenya, we find out that the Rift Valley lakes, in most cases, we find out that they're habitated by the indigenous communities, and there is a lot to learn from them, but we find out that we don't have enough data on what, especially under the climate change adaptation. So there is really need to also work closely with them. And also we need to reshape food access and also consumption patterns to ensure basic nutritional needs are met. Also, this will help to foster healthy and sustainable eating patterns in Africa and a globe. And also, we need also to reduce loss and waste in food systems, because by targeting infrastructure and farming practices and also processing, distribution, and household habits. So finally, we also need to create a comprehensive, shared, integrated information systems that encompasses human and ecological dimension in that aspect. So what are the way forward for researchers or early career researchers? So we need, in Africa, because there is a gap in this, we need to train and mentor a network of peer educators also and among early career researcher groups to also conduct behavior of change, specifically in terms of communications, because we see that there is lack of enough publicity on which research findings we have, so that it's easier for the community, especially the farmers, to also learn from what is happening. And then also we need a network of researchers from Africa partner universities, also NGOs, and also small-scale producers have to come together to work closely in order to tackle this problem of food insecurity and climate change. And also we need also to build an equitable research partnership that's why we have platforms like Akofe under MR and also MRN, and also with the Planetary Health Network, so that we could collaborate and also strengthen the research culture to support the producers, but also nurture the next generation of African food and farming scholars through the project training program. And also we need also to strengthen interdisciplinary, because we find out that since planetary health, we need to not only work with people from academia, but we also need to switch to work closely with people from business sector, government sector, policy makers, and so on. And by this, it will be feasible for them to apply funding. Like you can see, the UNDP and FAO supported some huge amount of money to fund or to fund any organization that work closely with the Germans to boost the agricultural sector in the role to address climate change impacts. So in conclusion, I would like to quote this quote from the WHO country representative from Somalia, Dr. Mamour, who presented at the World Health Summit. And he mentioned that we should scale up social protection programs, but link them to recovery in food, agriculture, health, water, and nutrition. And we must make health and nutrition parts of our inclusive economy and social recovery to offset the effects of conflicts, climate change, and COVID-19 pandemic. And we must also promote durable solutions that benefit the population in a displacement setting and ensure resilient livelihood opportunities and sustainable use of land. And we must stimulate markets, provide livelihood opportunities for rural people. Above all, we must win against our greatest enemy, climate change. So I will also share with you a summary report of what I learned when I attended the World Health Summit last year on planetary health and One Health approaches in securing sustainable food system and nutrition that you could learn from. And this really, there is a high need for synergizing or integrating a holistic and integrated approach or focusing on both planetary health and One Health concept, by involving the whole society, which is needed to not only addressing human and environmental risk associated with food supply, but also in the context-specific nutrition to secure a sustainable food system. I would also like to briefly share with you that we are also, as a hub, we're also working on a project called SOPHIA, Strengthening One Health and Planetary Health in Eastern Africa. And under this project, we are really also strengthening research and also engaging more in education on planetary health and also community building and so on. And also we welcome the Akofe team to participate in this project whenever we call upon you. Thank you so much for listening. And I'm looking forward to our discussion, and maybe Samuel has some questions that he will pose to the audience. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Melvin. You can bet I have questions. I have questions that would drive dialogue this evening. If you would oblige me, I would like us to go on, let's say, a 3 minutes recess, an eye break from our screens, just to look away, just move away from your desktops, from your PCs, from your laptops, from your iPads or iPhones or mobile devices. And in that 3 minutes, I want us to take a breath, a deep breath, and think upon what we've just seen, the information that has just been dished out to us. You know, pick up your spoon, your knife, and whatever utensil you have in your cutlery set, and try to digest, you know, put it in bits and portions and digest what you've just fed your eyes, and let it go into your digestive system. And then at somewhere around 10 minutes past the 11-hour mark here, which would be, say, I think that should be some 8 p.m. GMT. And so at about 8:10 GMT, we would reconvene, and then would go into a session of questions and answers, of interactive conversations, and to, you know, just dig into this topic, dig into the subject. So for now, let's take a break. Thank you. I think, are we all still here together? Oh, I see Dr. Mona. Yeah, that's reassuring. So let's all come back. Let's all come back into the space. Let's bring ourselves together here. So welcome everyone once again. Welcome, welcome. I think a few persons joined us somewhere during the session. And I did mention I was going to give the opportunity to these people to just briefly say one or two sentences about themselves. I see now that there is more than two persons. If I recall right, the two persons I was going to give the opportunity to would have been Melvin, the second Melvin from Kenya, and then Yimi is also here. I also see Isaac, Collins, and Francis Nwape. We may not be able because of time. We may not be able to take everyone's, give everyone the opportunity to do this, but I'd like to keep by our words and give the opportunity to at least Melvin, to whom we gave the promise. And so Melvin, would you want to introduce yourself briefly to the house?
So, hello
Melvin.
everyone. Hello, can you hear
Hi.
me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, okay. So, my name is Melvin Kerubo. I am a Kenyan, and currently I am in Morocco, where I'm pursuing my doctorate studies in animal genetics. So that's what I'm specializing. So Melvin, our speaker, thank you so much for the presentation. It was very informative, and I'm glad each and every one of us will be able to take one thing from you. And what I can add on in this presentation, I think climate change is the main basic of what has really caused problems in Africa, especially in terms of hunger strike. Because giving as an example of my country, Kenya, of what has been happening currently, there's a lot of hunger strike where many people, including even in the capital city, a normal Kenya cannot be able to afford food on the table. And I can give, like, climate change has been a factor because normally at this period in Kenya, we normally have rains, and the farmers were really prepared with the fertilizer that the government had offered to reduce the prices to start growing the crops. But because of the lack of rains, we find like the farmers were not able to produce anything for our country. So from that, we found like many people, many families, even the food that was currently in the market was a problem because the food prices had to go up, meaning even a normal Kenya could not be able to afford food on the table. So I think if we can bring like awareness to the people on how to combat climate change, it can help the people of Kenyans in one way or another to be able to combat hunger strike. So thank you, Melvin, for the presentation. I'm very glad to join today and to listen to you, and wishing you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Melvin. And your appreciations to Melvin, I believe, is duly acknowledged. So Melvin to Melvin, thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a wonderful, wonderful time all along. A wonderful presentation by Melvin this evening. For those of you who do not know what's going on, we have two Melvins in the house. Yes, two different Melvins. And so one Melvin did the presentation and one Melvin has just introduced herself. If you want to know both, ask one of them. And so that's that about that. So it's nice to have us all together here this evening. It's been a very, very interesting time, a very wonderful time. The conversations we're having this evening will be thought-provoking, should also be research stimulating. And in no little part to the presentation by Melvin, she's given us so much to feed on. And so Melvin, at some point, I would like you to reshare the last slide, that conclusion slide you showed, where there were quite a few interesting subjects that could be taken from that slide for our conversation. I'll let you know when I need that, especially where it says we need to tackle one of the most, if not the most, the threatening problem on the horizon, which is the problem of climate change. But before we come to the whole subject of climate change, it's a broad topic, it's a broad perspective. When you talk about climate change and food security, these two things are mutually inclusive, if I can say, and at the same time, they could be mutually exclusive if you look at them from different lenses, And so we have a very, very interesting dialogue. And I personally have certain questions. Now, my questions are not person specific. My questions I want to trade to the whole house. I want us all to think about it. For instance, when Melvin was having her presentation, she talked about imagination challenge. How do we imagine the world around us, the world in which we live? What's the relationship between the human components of our world, or the human beings as a species and other species in the world? The animals, the non-living or the abiotic components of our ecosphere, of the environment in which we find ourselves. How do we interact with these things? Does it play a role in how our health panders? Does it play a role in health outcomes? Does it play a role in things like climate change? And so take, for instance, the way we use petroleum, which is not a living thing. If we abuse our use of petroleum, does it have a kickback effect? And if we deal unjustly with the other living components, but who we consider to be, these things we consider to be the lower organisms, like the goats, the rams, the sheep, the mammals, right? How do we manage, or how do we keep a balance in the ecological components of the ecosphere, of this world where humans can survive and live in? And how do these things in the long run or in the short run have a way of affecting or impacting our holistic life form on Earth? That's something I very much want us to think about. And then we still have the knowledge challenge. Sometimes I tell people that it's not so much a problem of knowing as it is a problem of not knowing what you do not know, right? And so very many persons will tell you, I know what the problem is. But the question I sometimes ask them is, do you know what the problem is not? Because we might very often get caught in the web of, I know what the problem is, that we even forget that we may not know what the problem is not. And if you do not know what the problem is not, how then are you sure that what you know to be the problem is indeed the problem? And so we have the knowledge challenge. We live in a world that seems to be so learned that we are beginning to become fools for our own wisdom. And so we have that problem. And then we have the implementation challenge that we need to also deal with. The problem of the challenge of having to go from the knowledge that is generated in institutes of learning, in citadels of learning, and how these things are implemented in real life scenarios. So you see that it's a whole network of challenges and possible solutions, of factors and cofactors and all of that. And so we're going to have those topics. We're going to pick them one after the other and see how we can do justice to this very interesting topic. I know time will not allow us to go all the way through, but we'll do as much as we can this evening, and then we can continue the conversations offline, perhaps on social media, in direct email communications, in networking forums, interacting with one another on a personal level. You feel free to get in touch with anyone here who might say something that's of interest to you, to collaborate and discuss, and then we'll take it from there and just continue to see what we can do as a research group. And so first, I would want to give opportunity to questions. And so do I have anyone in the house who might have any specific question relating to the presentation of this evening? Anyone who has specifically a question? We want to harvest as much of those questions as we can before we begin to dialogue and discuss potential solutions. Any question?
Hello again. Hello once again.
All right. Hello, Melvin.
Yeah, I have a concern.
All right.
And my concern, being I am a genetist, and I know, like, when we have, for example, when there's a problem of hunger strike, especially in Africa, most of the time, the government, I can give an example of my country. The government tries to combat this problem by importing food, I can say food, from outside the country. And what they can do, I know most of the food that is imported, it can be genetically modified food. And I remember example, when my country wanted to import food from outside, many people, the Kenyans, were complaining, and especially people who don't know about the genetically modified organisms. They were complaining that this food is not good. The government wants to bring diseases to the people once they consume this food, because they think the genetically modified organisms tend to cause diseases like cancer, diabetes, and etc. So from what we've learned from Melvin, we have learned, like, as experts, as researchers, we should be able to create public awareness, because I know many people do not know about these genetically modified organisms. So my concern is, like, why do people have fear of the genetically modified foods? And yet we know it is one of the remedies that once the country will be able to import this food, it will be able to combat the hunger strike for a while, as it tries to look for other situations that can help to solve the problems. So why? That's my question and my concern.
Okay, thank you very much, Melvin. And so your question, in summary, is why are people scared of genetically modified agricultural produce? Okay, we'll come to that in a moment. I see Yimi. Yimi's hand is raised. Yes, Yimi.
Thank you very much.
Yimi, I think you have a network slur.
Opportunity to speak. Thank you, Melvin, for the wonderful presentation. Please. Oh, am I heard, please?
Okay, yes, I think you're audible now.
Okay, sorry about that. I think it's my network. Okay, so yeah, I was just about to ask that from what Melvin has presented for us all to see, we have seen the great gap between, or let me say, the great connection between climate change and food insecurity in Africa. And one of the slides she presented, we can see the data there, the number of persons who lack food on a daily basis and all that, and people who are undernourished. Well, as a student of microbiology, I'm just thinking, because I believe so much that what we eat in a way determines our health, like what Melvin has also shared. And I'm looking at it from the perspective of human microbiome. I don't know whether we have an understanding of human microbiome here. Okay, yes. So I don't know, has there been any research along the line of trying to consider what we eat, the quality of the food we eat and the impact on human microbiome and perhaps the effect on human health? I think that is an important aspect we have to consider. Thank you.
Thank you very much. In fact, Yimi, am I interested to know? Okay, later on we'll come to the answers, but I think I have something to say on that particular question you raised, the interaction of food consumption or diet on human microbiome and how this influences overall health outcome across different subpopulations. So we'll come back to that. Thank you very much, Yimi. So any other person with a question for us this evening?
I have a question.
Vanessa, please go ahead.
Yes, it's just how, I mean, if everybody have an idea, how could we put together like small farmers, scientific community, and policymakers? This is like $1,000 question, but I think we should think about it. How can we start doing this? Because as I can see, this is a very strong point to start.
Well, Vanessa, that's I think that's the elephant in the room in most scientific. It's always the elephant in the room. How do you bring researchers on one hand, along with funding organizations, and then maybe in governments, and then bring everyone. These are the major stakeholders, right? Bring them together to one table to discuss a way of progressing towards a mutual solution. I'll be honest with you, very often it's not always easy because one, you need to be able to satisfy the different players at the same time. And the truth is, very much we realize that what is the desire of one person might be what is the dissatisfaction of the other. So how do you at the same time satisfy one person's desire, which in fact is the major reason another active player is dissatisfied? And so, and how do you bring these people together? But I feel that there are very many intelligent persons in the house this evening. Let's see, that's another interesting one. Let's see if time would permit us, and we'll see if we can answer that question and see if we can forge our way forward. And for now, I have two hands raised. I think Leonard, I saw your hand up first, and then Elias. I'll take these two, and then we'll just go straight into the answers. We may not be able to take more. And if time permits us, we'll take the next set of questions. And so, Leonard, you first.
Thank you so much, Samuel, and thank you, Melvin, for that elaborate presentation. In the recent past, there's been a lot of concern on the effects of climate change. Number one, I want to say that it takes a long time for some of the permanent things that look that they are permanent effects of climate change to arise. I want to say, for instance, some of the water towers Africa are these I'm connecting to food security measures like irrigation in our agricultural lands that have been used for some time to try to curb the effects of food insecurities. So my question or my concern is, do we really think we have some of the quick interventions that we can put in place to deal with food insecurities now that we can no longer do major irrigations like we used to do? Major rivers are dry, and I'm sure it cannot take few time for us to have them back again because of climate interventions. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. Okay, very quickly, I will just take Elias. Hello, Elias, please, your question.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you, Melvin, for your good presentation. Mine is very similar to what Agan has just raised. I look at food security and climate change from the perspective of lack of adequate water, maybe to produce that food. Climate basically has two major components, that is the temperature component and the moisture component, which we call precipitation. And I'm seeing here the problem in Africa and many other parts affected by climate change is either lack of water for agricultural purposes or too much water. And I look back and think that these are problems related to maybe lack of strategies to conserve water to be used for these agricultural practices, so that when we have a lot of it, we need to conserve it, so that at the time when we don't have that water, we can use the water that we have conserved to practice agriculture. I don't know how much research is going on in that direction so that we can maintain agricultural production to sustain life in spite of what we are seeing as climate change, because we know from basic knowledge that the amount of water globally is not changing much. It is just the distribution and the times at which the water falls. So if we can do enough research to ensure that whatever water or precipitation we get at whatever time, we conserve that. And also it is the same water, let's not forget that the same water that falls as rain or precipitation that causes sometimes problems for agricultural practices, causing erosion and making the soils poorer or removing the more productive parts of soil. So there should be a lot of integrated research, maybe in looking at soil conservation together with water conservation, because to produce food, we need that soil to be in the, that water to be in the soil as soil moisture. If it runs off, we need to trap it in dams so that we can use it for irrigation. Thank you. That is my comment. Maybe the question would be, what research is going on in that area so that we can combat?
Yeah, thank you very much for that contribution / question. It's a very interesting one. What research is going on in that area? I, for one, may not be able to answer as a force of authority, but I would share my opinion about that before the close of this evening's meeting. And so we have a few questions in the house. And now let's begin to pick up our questions one after the other. And I just want to set a premise. At the moment, it looks as though there's just two persons who would answer questions. That would be myself and Melvin, but no, it will go beyond that. So I would take the liberty of calling some persons that I know to answer certain questions. So I want everyone to be prepared. And I hope no one would intentionally just remain mute if I do call on you or try to just hide away. Okay, so let's all stay together here. So the first question actually, which was from Melvin, was actually making reference to GMOs. GMOs are genetically modified ordinances, or what we know as food produces, agricultural produces, or whatsoever that might be. Why are people scared of GMOs? From my point of view, human beings by nature are scared of things they do not know. It's a natural instinct of all living beings. Every living organism will be scared of what he or she does not really know. If you put a cat, if you bring let's say a non-living object to a cat, an object is seen for the first time, the first thing it will do would be to push away from that object, even if that object would eventually become a toy that it would play around with. The first thing, it will try to go around that object and try to say, can it harm me in any way? Is this thing dangerous? Is this thing, could it kill or harm me? It's a natural instinct. And so when people hear GMOs and they hear these things are genetically modified, their question is, can it also modify me if I consume this thing? And so can it alter my genetic makeup? And that is where research needs to go beyond just being research to being informative for the final consumers. I think I was having a conversation with my supervisor, and I told him that one of the things I want us to implement, as I think I was talking, this was something I discussed with him in 2021, and I told him one of the things I want us to implement in our research, in our lab, is beyond the research documents that are published in forms of journal publications and all, that I want us to write synopsis in the language that people can understand. Something that has nothing to do with the scientific jamboree and the scientific jargons we use when we write our publications. Write it in a language that the people who read can understand what your research actually is talking about. And so people very much do not even know what GMOs are. And if you take the pandemic, the recent pandemic, as a context, if you bring it into the picture and you see how people very much ran away from vaccines because of the misinformation or different kind of information, and rightly so, because some of this information over time began to look like truth. And you know, where the lie has been told for too long, it very much easily takes the form of the truth. And so people who do not know would question if these things are indeed good or bad. It's only normal. And so the onus lies on us as researchers to put the information out there in a way that these people can understand. If you come from a country, for instance, Kenya, where people are scared of GMOs, and you are a geneticist who understands what genetically modified ordinances or genetically modified food or agricultural produce is, you understand how it works, write it in the language that Kenyans understand and tell them that I have nothing, I'm not monetized to do this. This is just general awareness. I'm trying to create an awareness to help. This is what these produces are. People would ask questions. Try as much as possible to answer the questions. And once you answer one person's question, that one person would eventually answer another one person's question somewhere down the line. And those two people would answer another two person's question. And over time, the knowledge creation, the awareness you've created would naturally wash away the fear of those that the people have. And that way we can make things work. I think that's my own opinion. I think that's because there's so much information and misinformation around this subject in public space. But I'm sure different people have different opinions. And I would like to give as many, okay, I think I see Nathan's screen. I see the hands up. I know there are 4 people using that screen, so I do not know who, maybe all 4 of them. So Nathan, yes, you want to say something?
Yes, thank you, Samuel. I want to support what you have said as it regards language and accessibility, and my own strong belief that it is important for us to be as clear as possible whenever we try and convey information as researchers, as academics, but more so as people, as citizens, as community members. So including to even future generations or younger generations, it's important that we tell them information that is true, but is also somehow hopeful that there is a future for them and for humans on planet Earth in a way that we can harmoniously balance legitimate needs. So regarding the question of GMOs, I want to bring in the law and policy angle, along with economics and intellectual property and power relations at scales ranging from local to global. So there is a related question about, do humans own life? Should humans own life? Because GMOs, by and large, are owned by the genetic information is owned by large multinational corporations, and the people who lead these corporations are concentrated in the global north, and they have a severely disproportionate amount of the global resources, and they have lobbying influence in their own national capitals, in global networks like the United Nations, and they also have the capacity to go to other countries and market and sell these products in a way that many times ends up displacing biodiversity, genetic diversity of indigenous foods and indigenous seeds. And this is a threat. This is a problem for people whose livelihoods depend on these indigenous foods and smallholder farming, like what Vanessa referenced. And so I don't want to paint too much of a simplistic picture where it's good versus bad. I think it's important that we all try and inform ourselves and try and understand the complexity. But as planetary health advocates, I think it's important that we try and ensure that there is a fair and equitable and sustainable distribution of resources, and that law and policy needs to accurately reflect and be informed by ecological principles, not the anthropocentric, anthropogenic principles about human beings controlling and owning and being able to patent life. That's where I think there's a major threat and a major problem. And we also need to think about the health components, where we as human beings have evolved over many generations with foods, with places, with diets that we are adapted to, and that we are most healthy whenever we consume food of that type. And if you have a rapid shift where you have processed foods or foods that are very different from what our parents or grandparents ate, that is a major contributing factor to why you have the global syndemic, pandemic about obesity, diabetes, hypertension, in tandem with malnutrition and undernutrition.
Thank you very much, Nathan. I think you've opened another Pandora box, where we begin to then dialogue on the ethos and the ethics of certain innovative developments. All these things go hand in hand, and sometimes they make research a double-edged sword, where on one hand it seems to have solved the problem, and at the same time it's creating another problem. It eventually depends on how it's used. And so, yes, thank you very much for that. I think I was seeing you miss hand. Okay, Nathan, again. All
Actually,
right. Okay.
This is Ray. I'm the friend of Nathan's here and of Nightingale's. I want to bring to your attention a study that was done by a woman by the name of Yash Shao, who has a doctorate in agricultural economics, and she studied. The topic of her study was when after the Cultural Revolution in China came to an end, there was a 7% increase in real income on the part of the Chinese peasantry. And so that was a wonderful economic opportunity. But what she wanted to study was how that 7% of real income was implemented, or how it was used in terms of the dietary changes of the Chinese peasant. And what she discovered was that the typical Chinese peasant took that extra income and invested it in eating junk foods from the urban attractive cultures, so that their actual nutrition went down, not up. They abandoned their traditional diets in trade for the highly advertised, highly attractive, maybe even more flavorful in some ways, salted and sugary foods that the urban cultures offered. And so now her study did not encompass the health consequences of that, but it did show that when people are coming from an impoverished position, and when their poverty has been very boring in certain ways, and there's for whatever reason, an economic opportunity that allows them to have newness in their life, sometimes they invest in the baubles, and especially given the economic incentives of economic interests that are not concerned with human welfare, those baubles are dangled to go ahead and grab hold of that modest wealth that has been attained by the formerly impoverished people. And so I think, even though this is coming from the Chinese experience rather than from the African experience, it is something that we must be mindful of when addressing transitions from poverty to less severe forms of poverty. Now, that's only partially tangential here, but I wanted to say it. And the other part I wanted to address is that when we address something like GMOs and the general concept that was pointed out how people are afraid of new things, I'd like to make two comments. When we introduce new concepts, new experiences, new inventions, there is always the danger of unintended consequences. That there are many things, DDT, which has been so helpful to fighting off malaria, has also been very harmful in many other ways and the world scale. I'm not, I realize in South Africa, they've done a lot of returning to DDT because the malaria was so important to fight as the highest priority. Finally, and I'm not trying to be dogmatic on this, is a balancing, and we have to do it with a lot of humility. There is, every generation is in a sense the guinea pigs, and necessarily so for the next generation. We will all make our mistakes, and let us hope that our descendants will learn from our mistakes and do better so that they can go ahead and build on what is done. And so we need to encourage those forms of science that are honest science, honest inquiry, and honest sharing. Unfortunately, many educational institutions and certainly many corporate scientists have been purchased to go ahead and produce dishonest science, partial cherry-picked dissemination of knowledge. So there are those political and economic dangers. I find so much inspiration for the idealism in this virtual room and the commitment of everybody present to working for the welfare of our peoples, all of our peoples. We must not allow that to be undone by the corrupt motivations of those who would distort our inquiries, who would take fear-mongering as the way to keep us from making those explorations, making those honest mistakes that we have to just learn from and build on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ray, for that. That was very, very detailed, very interesting. Oh my, oh my, oh my. It could only get better. I really do wish I had the power over time to just put time on a standstill. And so we could carry on this session and continue to discuss and have this conversation go on and on and on into the evening. But time fails us, and I'm so limited as a human, and I cannot do that. I wish I could do just that. At the moment, we still have questions that are left unanswered. And I know there are contributions that people want to make, but you'll permit me to do this. I know that, in fact, Ray's submission just a couple of seconds back very much answers into Yimi's question on the impact of diet on the human microbiome. And that would have been another topic I would have wanted to delve into, but I do not know if time would allow me to do that. Nevertheless, I would want to give one last opportunity to Melvin to give a closing statement on her presentation, and if she would be willing to answer any of these questions that have been raised, just to give a closure to her dialogue, her presentation, and then I can see if there is still room for dialogue hereafter. So Melvin.
Thank you so much, Samuel. I would just like to answer the question that was raised about how can we include farmers and researchers in the same table. I think it will be feasible as research community or people from academia and so on, that we focus more on also community-based participatory projects. By this, we need to highlight, let's say, nurturing, deploying, and also sustaining community partnerships, because in most cases, we really neglect incorporating communities in our research programs in most cases, especially when we need to go to the field. We just go collect data and then we leave, we do the analysis and so on. But we need to involve communities so that we can share the leadership in planning, implementing, and also evaluating the evidence-based approach. And also in the process, we find out it will improve the application of research outcomes, and also for community development and also for policy change. So when you involve them in the process, it's also easier for you to even involve the policymaker. So afterwards, it's then easier for the research community to organize a workshop whereby you can now present what has happened, the findings, and so on. And by this also, we need to also amplify the fact that we need to strategize a way of communicating, just like you had mentioned earlier on the aspect of language. In as much as we publish our work with scientific world, but let's consider a way that we could simplify the language of our research findings to the community. And if at all, let's say now that from the Eastern Africa communities, most of them speak Swahili, we could maybe basically come up with a proper research finding concerning simple language in Kiswahili and so on, and maybe also translate in other local languages in the process. Thank you very much. I think that's all that I wanted to add on top of the questions that was asked.
Thank you very much, Melvin. Thank you very much. Really do appreciate your presence with us this evening. We know it's not been very easy for you. You've gone out of your way, out of your hectic schedule to be here with us this evening. And I see you putting on a jacket there. And when I saw you this evening with your jacket, I was like, oh, my friend is in a jacket this evening when I'm almost in my pajamas. So I very much appreciate the effort you've put into the presentation. And it was a whole lot of work for you. I very much am aware of that. So thank you very much, Melvin. Thank you. We really do appreciate that. Now, back to the conversation in the house. I'll do something this evening. I know people still want to say something, and we just may go beyond the 2-hour mark. I do not plan to do that, but just may. But before we come to the final few minutes of this evening's session, of today's session, I still want to give opportunity to Vanessa and Dr. Mona and a few other persons to give 1 or 2 submissions. I would want to take what I would call my own commercial break. Now, the commercial break is not for us to go away. We're still going to be here. There's a particular project that's been going on in the background where we've been trying to work on a particular paper. And we have with us our research director, the person of Yusuf Tajuddin. And so we're going to take a short commercial break away from the subject matter at hand, which is climate change and food security in Africa. And I'll just invite Yusuf to say 1 or 2 things on that particular assignment. I think it's something that was carried over from the last MRN meeting, and we want to say something on it before people begin to blink their eyes, and maybe for those who are in the global south, before they begin to bid welcome to the world of sleep. And so, Yusuf, if you can hear me, I would like to give you a few moments to briefly update us regarding the write-up task, the one regarding malaria.
Okay, good evening, everyone from Nigeria. So thank you so much for your insightful information on GMO. So I think I've really learned a lot, and I would like to just add a bit of comment that, okay, why trying to raise advocacy for why trying to we need to raise advocacy regarding community engagement and the need to hear from the perception of the communities on their view regarding GMO. So hearing this, we can actually know their concern, and from there we can actually provide some measures like educating them on the benefits of GMO, and just to address their concern about it. So that one aside, during our last meeting, we actually discussed on we proposed to address the rising prevalence of malaria in sub-Saharan Africa, driven by climate change. So the reason for the topic was that we know that the impact of climate change is actually real, and developed developing countries are actually bearing the brunt of this threat. So, and part of this is seen in the rising prevalence of vector-borne diseases, such as malaria. As such, and as part of our goals in this in this space, is to contribute to addressing the challenges faced by sub-Saharan Africa. So we come up with a topic on how to address this, the prevalence of malaria and the prevalence of malaria in light of climate change crisis. So what we want to do is a systematic review, because we believe is actually the research that we can conduct that would inform policy decision. So and this particular research is being led by Dr. Yamungo. So he actually guided us through some important aspects of the research, what we are looking after, and how to go about it in a well-defined manner. So the progress of this report was sent a few days ago, and what we've done so far is that Dr. Yamongo has made this so simple and succinct for us, in the sense that the required outlines and how to go about the process of writing this manuscript, coupled with some of the analysis that would involve in this report, has been explained in the document he sent to me. So what I just want to, so the sections, everything, so everything has been well defined. So what I just want to know is I want to those that are really interested in participating in this project, I want you people to actually send a private message to me, so that I can delegate tasks and we can get on the work. So we can start the draft. So the one of the aspects that we also discussed during our last meeting was the aspect of the analysis. But based on our discussion, I think the co-author shouldn't bother about the analysis of involved in systematic review. So that will be taken care of. So what we just need now is we need what we need is commitment and show of interest. Let us know if you're actually interested in this project, so that you can be on we can add your name to the list of those that will get involved in this research. So, and if you are interested, kindly send a private message to me so that I can delegate tasks to you. So I think that is all for now. So
thank you very much, Yusuf, for that. So for those who are interested, it's a project that is looking at malaria as an offshoot of climate change. And so we're looking at the trends, the incidence and the trends of malaria in sub-Saharan Africa. Anyone who is interested can get in touch with Yusuf Tajuddin or with Dr. Mona on WhatsApp. If you do have their WhatsApp, or via email, they send a message across and they would bring you into the pipe as regarding what is being done concerning that particular project. I also did see in the chat section, that Lydia was suggesting that could we conduct a comprehensive systematic review on GMO in Africa? That, my dear friend, may not be very easy to give an answer to at the moment, because we always suggest a new topic after each MRN meeting. And this sounds like a very good topic for us, but maybe, just maybe, at the end of this evening session, and then after discussion with other members of the executive committee, we would decide on when it would be a very good time for us to embark on that, because we have one at the moment and we would not want to divide the attention, and very much bearing in mind that some of the people who are working on the malaria project would also, or may also, want to be a part of the GMO project, and so as not to create a conflict of duties at the same time. But that's a very interesting one, and I'm sure Dr. Mona is somewhere in the house, either actively or passively, and she's paying much attention, and she would be able to carry on from this point. And so we are just at the exact point where we're supposed to call it a day this evening. It's been a long 2 hours, but it's also been very short. I just cannot imagine how quickly time has just gone flying by. It's been very interactive. It's very interesting. I know people want to say things. So what I'm going to suggest is that if you would be very much willing to continue this conversation for, let's say, another 5-10 minutes, do feel free to still sit back and just bear with us for the next 5-10 minutes. If unfortunately you have other engagements and you will not be able to stay for the next 5, 10 or 15 minutes or thereabouts, we very much would understand if you have to leave. And so that way I can say that's an informal way of closing the meeting for today and for the month, officially or unofficially, but would also want to plead with every participant to just hang around for a few more minutes so we can just touch 1 or 2 other things and then we close it up for the day. And so thank you very much. So that being said, I remember Ray mentioned, or he was talking a little bit on how on the topic of diet, and that was going to lead me into Yimi's question on diet and the human microbiome and all of that. And when you look at GMOs, and yes, like as we rightly began to talk about, and we look at what may be the unintended effect of GMOs in the long run, perhaps these are even effects we may not be able to see at the moment. So say 5, 7, 10 years from now, we might make mistakes in this scientific research we're doing, which we would only realize were in fact a mistake 10 years down the line. And then it might come in the form of health outcome, health impact, and what have you. But in the moment, is there any research that is being done that is looking at the impact of diet on the human microbiome? The answer is yes, and not just one research, quite a few research is being conducted in that space. I, for one, in the lab where I am at the moment, we started a project in 2017, if I recall right. The project was started in 2017, and it was a project that was looking at the impact of organic diet in comparison with conventional diet on the health profile of primary school children on the island. And we did find out then that so much of the conventional diet that is on the market today has a high, statistically significant, higher level of pesticide. And the 2 pesticides were corticosteroids and the 6CN and MDAs. And there was this statistically significant increase in the pesticide levels in the conventional diet when compared with organic diet. And of course, this also has the health impacts that come in its way. And so yes, something is being done. And at the moment, we are also working still in that line of research. We're also working to look at, I think last year we published a follow-up project, a follow-up report on that project, where we also found statistically significant higher levels of metals. I think that was lead and cadmium, higher levels of lead and cadmium in conventional food, much more than you would find in organic food. And for those who might not understand, organic food are food that have been produced using organic manure, the natural without the pesticides or insecticides or whatsoever is used as fertilizers and all that we have in modern day agriculture. And so we're comparing those children who are exposed to organic diets, the purely organic diet, as opposed to those who are exposed to conventional diets. And this conventional diet, a diet like the burgers, the pizzas, and all what you can think of and all of that. Is there any difference? And that research has begun to show that, number one, children who are exposed to a conventional diet are at risk of higher exposure to pesticide. Recently, we've discovered there is a higher exposure to rare metals, or what you call the rare earth metals like lead and cadmium. I'm also working on another aspect of that project where we're looking at inflammation, and we're looking at CRP, which is C-reactive protein. And we've also found statistically significant higher levels of inflammation amongst the children for that 40-day period who were exposed to conventional diet as opposed to organic diet. And if you talk about inflammation, going hand in hand with inflammation is also the problem of DNA damage and oxidative stress. And so when you look at all these and how all these things alter the the epigenetic profile of a human being and how these genes in the long run also alter both the gut microbiome or the general human microbiome. Yes, there is reason for us to be worried and there's reason for concern, but this research that we have at the moment as a single research may not be well enough to raise the alarm within the scientific community. And so there is need for a similar or parallel research in the same pipe to be conducted in different parts of the world across different subpopulations. And that's where we will begin to see how, if indeed this conventional diet is doing more harm than good. And perhaps the same thing can be done about GMOs, and the same thing can be done by about almost every other invention that is brought into our world. And so, yes, research is being done, and I can say from preliminary findings, if I can put it that way, preliminary findings already is beginning to show that diet plays a significant, a very significant role in health outcome. And that research that has just recently been done here also shows that there's a very, very significant link between diet and the risk of childhood cancer and obesity among Cypriot children. And we have come to realize that the incidence of cancer has increased alarmingly in the last 5 years. And we were trying to find what are the perhaps causative factors or associations that can be drawn between things like climate change, diet, and cancer incidence among childhood populations, because some of the studies that have been conducted in recent years have been looking at older populations to the negligence of the younger ones. And we tried to do something that looked at children under the age of 11. And we found out that the incidence of cancer cases in Cyprus has a whole lot to do with dietary patterns or dietary habits and a shift in lifestyle. You know, so much of the children are made to live sedentary life. You know, they go to schools, they sit in a particular position in front of PCs and what you have, and then they are there for a few hours, and then they come home and they no longer play around with friends. Everyone just gets into the house, and the parents are in one part of the house, and then the children are in the other part of the house, and they are stuck in front of screens for lengthy hours. They are eating too much of junk and unhealthy food, and all these things are beginning to increase the incidence of cancer and childhood obesity. And so I know so many people have so much to say about this, and so there's so much, but time would not permit us to dig into all these. But just to say one or two things also to wrap the conversations around what the topic of this evening indeed was. It's about climate change and food scarcity. I remember that I know that statistically about 1/3 of the food that is being produced globally is being wasted every year. That's put at around about 2.5 trillion tons of food goes to waste every year. Now, if you look at the number of people who are suffering from acute hunger and poverty globally, we're looking at around 1 to 2 billion people. Now, you hold that in one hand, you have around 2.5 trillion tons of food going to waste. You have around 2.5 billion, or around 2 billion people suffering from hunger and poverty. Now, the question then becomes, is the problem of food shortage, is it a problem of production or a logistics problem? Is it a problem of scarcity of food or the division, the way food is divided between the global north and the global south? And so this is not a topic we can discuss at the moment. I just want us to think about it. If you bear in mind that the average human will consume just around 1 ton of food per year, and then we waste around 2.5 trillion tons of food. That tells you that if the food that is being wasted globally per year was actually redirected to those who do not have food, we might as well just solve the problem of food poverty and food scarcity. But that's a dialogue that I think we can always carry on in our social networks, because this is already 9 minutes past the hour mark, and we cannot continue and continue and continue. So there's so much. It's an interesting evening, it's an interesting dialogue. I would want to wrap it up from my own end, and I would want to give the floor to 4 persons. One, I would want to give the floor to Vanessa to give her own closing remark. I'd want to hear a closing remark from Nathan and Nightingale together as one, and then from Dr. Mona, and finally from Melvin. And so from me, as a host for this evening, I'm signing out. It's been a pleasure being here with each and every one of you. You may no longer be seeing my face this evening, but you would always have me in the house with you. And so I'll hand over to Vanessa. Vanessa, you're free to take it over from here.
Okay, thank you very much for this. And definitely, I think I will discuss this with Mona and Samuel, but we definitely need to split food systems and related to planetary health in more gatherings, because it's a lot, and it's like a hub and talks about so many aspects of what we are trying to do. So that's what I suggest. So yes, thank you, Melvin. Thank you, everybody. It was lovely. And I mean, I need to leave. I couldn't leave because it's so interesting. I'll pass the word to Nathan and Nightingale. Is that it, the order? Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa. I'll be quick as well. Nightingale is not with us right now, but I can speak, channeling her energy and spirit as well. And just to share gratitude for all that has been contributed. And for those who weren't here in the beginning, I did a little bit of singing about can you feel the planetary health tonight? I won't do that now, but wanted to just say personal commitments to continue moving forward together. This space is about ensuring that there is representative diversity, that's the voices, the perspectives, the ideas, the solutions that are present in people all over the world, including those who may not have PhDs or those who are younger. We believe in the power and the potential that is in each person. And moving forward, we're just asking all of you to work with us, to move with us, to help us to continue this process of opening up the space so that everyone knows that their voice is important and that they are a part of this planetary community that includes present and future, human and non-human, and people all over the world. So again, thank you, and let's keep moving forward together. Pamoja twaweza, together we are able. Over to you, Mona.
Thank you so much, Nathan, and I really acknowledge the wonderful presentation of Melvin. It's really thought-provoking. It's like holistic, bringing us from the what's on the news as a hot topic to practical implementation through the planetary health lens. So I really congratulate you, Melvin, and we are so happy and privileged to have you with us. It's a great honor, really. And thank you so much, Samuel, for the excellent facilitation and also for the extra information. This was really beyond us all, and we really are happy to read your paper also. Maybe you can share it here on the chat. And also, I would like to give a reminder that as a mentoring research network, we open application twice per year. So perhaps people joining here who are not MRN members can apply and be members during our next cycle in July. And we will share that on the Akufi platform. What else? Yeah, something else just to elaborate on what Yusuf had discussed, that we have only 10 days to accomplish this write-up task. So we need serious, interested researchers to make this effort and to collaborate with us on this malaria paper. And as we usually follow that, we have a journal club on Akufi, and we discuss some topics, and then in the following months we invite like esteemed members of the MRN to further dive into this specific topic, and so we can extract like ideas for write-up. And so this is how things go like in the MRN. And we also encourage you to join the journal club, where you can post any interested articles or any pieces that really that can be stimulating in research ideas also. So this is all from me now, and thank you so much everyone for joining. I'm so happy that this meeting has been recorded so that we can watch the beautiful presentation that Melvin shared with us once more. Thank you so much, and back to you, Samuel.
Oh, I did close it up from my end already. So, okay, Melvin, you close it up for us tonight.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone, and especially the team MRN and Akofe for inviting me to present about food security and climate change. And I would also like to acknowledge the presence of my undergraduate and master's lecturer, Professor Elias Ochakun, who has attended this event as well. And this really means a lot if you get support from your own lecturer and at the same time a colleague at the moment to support this event also. And also I acknowledge the fact that we have also received some new members like Lydia Chabuke, who had interest in participating in the planetary health space as well. And above all, I'm really grateful. And I would also like just to make some few announcements so that you can also participate in one of our upcoming events under the Planetary Health Eastern African Hub. Since climate change is a hot topic and it's a serious issue in Africa, we're thinking of doing a climate change campaign. And also, since we have a knowledge gap in planetary health space, we're also working together with the campus ambassadors from Africa so that we could do a planetary health education toolbox campaign. So once we have started this campaign, we will be urging you guys to support us in this. Otherwise, I'm very grateful for this initiative. Thank you so much, and have a nice evening.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. It's been nice having you here. Thank you, Dr. Mona. Thank you, Nathan, Ray, Nightingale, and Nancy. Thank you, Elias, Leonard, Lydia, Isaac, I see you there, Collins, Yusuf, Sharon, Melvin, my other Melvin from Kenya now, and Francois. It's been a pleasure having you in the house. Thank you very much for your time. We do appreciate it. And sincere apologies that we went a little bit beyond the time margin for this evening's meeting. We do appreciate you. Thank you. Would very much want you to continue the conversations in the social media space, wherever you find yourself in person, and let's continue to make our own difference in the world. Thank you very much. Bye from me to everyone.